Hey guys, if you're someone who's been looking forward to the release of Subnautica 2 or its early access, then I'm sure you've been seeing all of these clickbait doomsday thumbnails about Subnautica being dead in the dirt a full 6 feet under. So, I'll do you one better and use a clickbait thumbnail that's ambiguous and maybe positive. You don't know. Anyways, let me just say that I'm in no way trying to attack any of these creators for their videos or their doomsday thumbnails. There is a very legitimate reason to worry, and while I haven't watched all of these videos, I have watched a couple and they contained good info, but it got me wanting to look into it myself, so I could form my own opinions and thoughts on the current situation. I want to start by talking about the situation itself, and then after that I want to talk a little bit about Krafton, which is the publishing studio that now owns Unknown Worlds. The last thing I'll say before we dive into it is to keep in mind that I am by no means a journalist. I have done my best to gather what information I can and inform you guys of it, as well as discuss some of my thoughts. I want this to be an open discussion. I doubt that I know everything that's going on, so if there's any important details that I missed, then let me know down in the comments. Also, the decision to put this video on this week was very last minute, so apologies if the editing is a little bit worse than normal. I just figured that'd be better to talk about this now when it's a bit fresher as opposed to waiting another week to talk about it. I know that I'm tardy to the party on this topic. I mean, it'll be over a week old by the time this video comes out, and in internet time, that's like a bajillion years. But the first thing that I want to say is let's calm down. Yes, there are good reasons to be worried, but there's also plenty of reasons to not be worried. Regardless, it is much better to approach the situation with a neutral and fair mind before assessing the situation. Otherwise, we're bound to just catastrophize things. So, what happened? Well, on July 2nd, Unknown Worlds, the studio that created Subnautica, was suddenly informed that their CEO, Ted Gill, and co-founders Charlie Cleveland and Max McGuire would be let go from their jobs and replaced with Steve Popotsis. Yeah, that's how I'm saying that. This is obviously very worrying. Leadership changes in the middle of a project are rarely a good thing, especially when the progress of said project is already going exceptionally well. In the past, leadership changes have caused massive delays in game releases, and sometimes even complete redoing of games in the past as well. It just sucks to a gamer that's looking forward to a release, or even a developer who's passionate about their project, to suddenly have a new person in charge that can just snap their fingers and destroy everything you were looking forward to. Plus, very often, the people that are least in touch with what the consumer wants are the corporate suits that have all that power. In situations like this, there is unfortunately only one thing that can be done, and it's to hope that the new leadership lets the team continue on their course. So let's see who this new CEO, this Steve Popotsis, is. Steve Popotsis is the CEO of Striking Distance and, as of July 2nd, Unknown Worlds. As far as I could find, he's best known for his involvement in the production of the Dead Space franchise. I haven't ever heard of or found any indications that Steve is prone to any egregious leadership choices. In fact, I'd never heard of him before until this whole controversy. But from what I can tell, there are no real red flags with Steve himself. Although there are a lot of people who have been extremely worried about Subnautica 2 being stuffed full of microtransactions or even a battle pass, because Steve supposedly has a habit of implementing microtransactions. But I just remember hearing that somewhere, so that could definitely be wrong. But either way, people are still very worried about that kind of a model being put into Subnautica 2 under this new leadership. Now, there have been some responses to try and do some damage control from Krafton. On July 3rd, Unknown Worlds released a letter to the community. In this letter, they talked about how they are supporting Steve as he transitions into the CEO spot. We're also supporting Steve Popotsis as he transitions into his role as CEO of Unknown Worlds. He's already expressed his excitement to check out everything we've been working on, and is diving into supporting our ongoing vision and journey to releasing Subnautica 2 Early Access. In this letter, they also let us know that the rest of the development team has not been changed at all, and they remain dedicated to continuing with their current vision. They also ensure to address the mentions of microtransactions. One final thing we want to address, as we've seen some additional concerns about it, nothing has changed with how the game is structured. It will remain as a single-player first experience, with optional cooperative multiplayer, no subscriptions, no loot boxes, no battle pass, no microtransactions. It's good that they clarified that for us. I personally would never have been worried about that in the first place, because taking a game that's had no model like that at all and then adding microtransactions into it is never going to work. It would do nothing except cause mass outrage in the community, as well as probably losing a lot of people's game sell, which will lose them a lot more money than any microtransaction would make them in the first place. Regardless of how ridiculous of a worry that I think it is, people were worried about it, so it's nice that they addressed it. Now, here's one thing I want to say on this. I have very little worries when it comes to the decisions that Unknown Worlds is going to make. They have always been a developer studio that's full of passion and fans of the franchise, so I have no doubt that they will fight for that. If Unknown Worlds was left alone, I think that Subnautica 2 will hardly change at all with this change of leadership, even though it is incredibly sad to see these people that have made so many games that we love be treated like this. Where my real worries are is in Krafton, because, in proper corporate fashion, they don't seem too keen on keeping the promises that they make. For those of you who don't know, Krafton is a game publishing company that bought Unknown Worlds back in October of 2021. When the two companies merged, Krafton said this: Unknown Worlds will function as an independent game development studio, wholly owned by Krafton, and will continue to operate globally with talent seeded throughout the world. Unknown Worlds' structure and leadership will remain in place to retain its unique creative identity. Now, before I say anything else, let's just underline two things real quick. Let's see. Structure and leadership remain in place. And, and the independent game studio. Yeah, okay. Just underline those real quick. Now, I'm assuming that most of you can already catch where I'm getting at with this. Krafton promises that the leadership and structure of Unknown Worlds would remain in place to keep the company's creative identity. But, as we can all tell, that same leadership, and in turn a huge part of the structure of the team, just got completely gutted out of nowhere. Not only that, but by forcibly changing anything within Unknown Worlds, let alone firing the CEO and both of the company's co-founders, also breaks the promise that Unknown Worlds would function as an independent game studio. The fact that Krafton has suddenly broken both of the promises that it made to the gaming community and Unknown Worlds makes me very skeptical of trusting anything that they say in regards to the future of Subnautica 2. The last thing I want to touch on is why on earth these changes were made in the first place. As far as I'm aware, nobody knows why Krafton chose to do this, including the leadership that was just fired. On July 4th, Charlie Cleveland, one of the co-founders, posted on Reddit regarding the situation. He talks about the beginning of the studio, the trials and tribulations of game development, his love for the franchise and community, and then the shock of being fired while in the middle of creating a long-anticipated sequel to his company's most loved game. It honestly kind of breaks my heart reading one of the last sentences of this post. After all these years, to find out that I'm no longer able to work at the company I started stings. It's very clear to me that the Unknown Worlds team was also under the impression that Krafton wouldn't be forcing its ownership authority onto their studio, and instead let them operate as they always had. Now, I am just a college student, so I don't know everything about how large companies operate, but I feel like it's safe to assume that you typically wouldn't change a leadership team unless said team was doing their job poorly or failing in some way, especially if that change is very sudden and during a crucial time for that company. This is what baffles me. I would get it if maybe Sub 2's development kept getting delayed, miscommunication was rampant, or if there was some really bad workplace misconduct discovered. But if it was one of those things, you think that Krafton would have made a statement about it. And they can't even try to claim that the studio is having issues functioning because in Charlie's Reddit post he also says this: "We know that the game is ready for early access release, and we know that you're ready to play it. And while we thought that it was going to be our decision to make, at least for now, that decision is in Krafton's hands." If development was going so well that they already have early access ready at the very beginning of July, then what could the reason for this change have possibly been? Hello, Stars and Post here. I just found this, saying that Krafton was saying that, or made it seem like, they thought the title needed more work before it can deliver the expected fan experience. I'm sorry, that's not what early access is for. Early access is so that the players can get a chance to experience what's there already, and they can give feedback so that the expected fan experience can be reached by the end. This is fundamentally not what early access is meant to be for. The point that I'm trying to make is I do not trust Krafton right now, and I feel like they are the biggest threat to the well-being of Subnautica 2 going forward. To me, this sudden change in leadership, when everything about the game's development was going fine, and it seems like the understanding of the relationship between Unknown Worlds and Krafton was that Unknown Worlds would function mostly on its own, feels to me like it could only have been a way of trying to steal control of Unknown Worlds in an attempt to secure the cash cow of Subnautica 2 for themselves. But hey, that's just me getting way out there, wild and wacky with it, doing a little bit of that catastrophizing we talked about earlier. So let's just go back to what we do know real quick. Krafton replaced the leadership of Unknown Worlds with Steve. That guy's name is never going to stop leaving my brain. And I'm definitely not scrolling back up my script to go find it. Steve. Despite causing a lot of panic among the fans and also being very tragic for the 3 people that got fired from their own company, the team that's left has expressed being determined to keep going on with the vision they have always had for this game. Like I said before, I don't, and I don't think you guys should have any worries on Subnautica 2's development from here on out, even under new leadership, as long as Unknown World's amazing team is left alone during production. But as we can now see, Krafton broke their promises before, and once someone lies to you, they're likely to do it again. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens to Subnautica 2 in the coming months. That's it for today, guys. Sorry if this video was a little tricky to follow. I didn't really follow a structure, and instead just wanted to talk through this crazy drama with all of you guys. If there's anything I missed or got wrong, please let me know in the comments. Things are still unfolding, and there are definitely details that I missed somewhere, but I'll be here looking for updates and let you guys know of any developments in the scene as soon as I can. If you liked this video, then like the video. It helps out the channel a lot. You guys are amazing, and I'll see you in the next one.